say it like it is. He don't care what you think of it.
I knew what Dale Hansen is. Unfortunately, right? Unfortunately.
I remember Dale Hansen Countdown when I first came to the show.
So Jerry Jones and I and a couple other guys.
This has been a great year, Ted. Dale.
We love Dale. We love Dale.
Dale. He keeps you in touch with sports.
If you're ready, jump right in. Dallas Dialogue with Dale.
Hola, shalom, and hey there, neighbor. Welcome to the latest episode of Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. I'm your host, Mark Villasana, and joining me as always is my BFF, marketing manager for Northwest Insurance, Miss Lila Levy. Hey, Lila, how are you doing?
Hola and shalom, and hey there.
Hey there, buddy. Also joining me is WFAA TV legend, podcast host, Rookie of the Year nominee, and the man we like to call the show around here, Mr. Dale Hansen. Hey, Dale, how are you?
Hey, how do I look today? How do I look today?
I would be an awful salesman if I did not ask about the shirt.
Well,
what's going on with the shirt?
This is actually kind of funny. It's got the Northwest Insurance Agency logo on the sleeve, and if anybody from WFAA is watching this, they're going to be a little bit ticked off because they bought me dozens and dozens of polo shirts and the like to wear with the WFAA logo, and I refuse to wear them because I like my Tommy Bahama shirts. But for you, because of this great insurance company sponsoring this podcast for me, I decided to put it on. But I only have one question. Not an insurance question this week, something else.
Shoot.
How many pockets does a Mexican shirt need, by the way?
Well, I'll tell you what.
Four. I've got four here.
Have you ever visited Mexico, gone to Cancun?
Not to Cancun, but I've been to Mexico.
Okay, well, you've seen all the people that come and try to sell you stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's so you can put all it in your pocket, right there. There's no excuses. So tell me, my friend, anything new? Anything since the last time we spoke? Anything grabbed your fancy? Anything?
Oh, a little bit of everything. But this topic today is, I've been on my soapbox for a couple of weeks, and I appreciate you letting me do that. But I wanted to lighten the mood a little bit and talk about some things that drive me nuts, like telephones, the social media phase that we're suffering through, in my opinion. And I would imagine you'll all have opinions, but here's mine.
Let's do it.
All right, it goes something like this. Now, I'm going to say this first so you won't have to. This will sound a great deal like the rantings of an old man who thinks things were better back in my day. But by God, some things were better back in my day. Gas at a station. They checked the air in the tires, the oil in the engine, and cleaned the windshield, and they did it for 33 cents a gallon. Now, that was a good day. But not everything was, of course. I do like the fact we have more than 3 TV channels to choose from now. 3 channels that shut off at midnight back in my day. But I don't need 177 channels either. And it drives me nuts that my TV bill now is higher than my first house payment was. I do wonder how we found anything back in my day. Well, the map compared to a GPS system that talks to me through the dasher on my phone is an absolute lifesaver. But our phones are out of control. I have flown too many times to count. I have flown to countries all over the world, and I have never once thought to myself when we landed, I need to call somebody. But apparently everybody else on my flight does. I've never had dinner at a restaurant and wondered if someone was trying to call me, and I've never called anyone because I leave my phone in the car where I wish everybody did. And why don't we have menus anymore? A waiter told me it was on my phone. I told him I didn't have my phone. He looked at me like I was from Mars, then brought me an old paper menu that was covered in mustard and spaghetti sauce. And since we're talking about phones, why do we protect that phone number like it's a national secret? Back in my day, they delivered to your door, free of charge, a book with not just the phone number, but the address of everybody in town. Now tell me that wasn't a better day. I don't want to ride in a driverless car. I don't want to call my bank or a business and talk to a computer. Although some of those calls, if you do get a real person on the line, transfer me to the computer. I said this years ago when the social media craze began, it would destroy our world as we have always known it to be, and I think I was right about that. The feel-good messages we share are far outnumbered by the moronic fools who somehow learned to type. The ability to bring us all together and share this crazy life we live seemed like such a great idea, but I don't care where you had dinner last night, and I don't want to see your vacation pictures either. My dad would actually lock the door and close the drapes so that Ed Leonard couldn't show us the fish he caught. Now he just put it on Facebook and we'd all have to see it, and doesn't that make our life better? Technology is the way of the future, but I'm not going to live long enough to see it all, and I'm not going to miss it that much either, because I liked my day. Now I spend my days worried about my granddaughter's future and the future of all those little babies being born now. AI will do the job of so many of them, so what do they do? How many influencers does one country need? But every generation has worried about the next one. Every generation has thought the latest invention would help a lot of us, but take too many jobs that we all need. That has been the concern and said so many times in the past, and yet we have always found a way. So I still hold out hope that we will again. But that was so much easier to say back in my day.
Well, Dale, that was a mouthful there. I like that one. I do agree with you one thing. It does sound like the ramblings of an old man.
It is the ranting of an old man.
But I'm a generation behind you, so I was one of those generations that was there before the computer age and now after the computer age. So I have a lot of thoughts. I want to push back on a lot of it, but I really want to hear what the beautiful Miss Lila Levy has to say about all this.
Oh, I'm going to disagree with you, Dale, for the next hour. I look, I understand with social media, I understand there are drawbacks to it, there are negatives to it. There are drawbacks and negatives to anything, to everything. I think that social media has been an evolution of technology and of connecting with each other. There are things I don't like about it, but there are things I love about it. I'm big on Facebook. My age group, people my age, my generation, they're big on Facebook. Now, people listening right now that are younger, they're more into Instagram and TikTok. I can get on Instagram and TikTok. I have accounts on there, but I love Facebook. And the reason I love Facebook, I'll tell you in a few short points. It connects.
Please, Lila, please make them short.
Short.
Let's
Short
see how
for
that
once
works
in
out.
your life, Lila, short. It connects me with my peers. It really does. It lets me know that what my friends' kids, grandkids are doing. If my friend's grandmother passed away, if my friend got a new pet, it's a mall. To me, I look at Facebook and social media as a mall because let's say, Mark, that I didn't work for you, okay? And, I'm great friends with you and your whole family, your beautiful wife, and your 4 kids. I at least would know what's going on with them from your social media posts, right? And because I'm not going to call and text you every day. I'm not going to call and text.
Let me stop you right there. We used to call people. I knew when my grandparents died. I knew when my best friend's parents died. I knew when my best friend's kid did something special because here's a novel concept. They called us.
I do that too, though. I call and I text. But we have large circles. We have large multiple circles of friends. You have your friends from work. You have your neighborhood friends. You have your high school friends, your college friends. We don't have time every day to talk to all those circles of friends. So to me, Facebook is that mall where you can see what's going on with all those different groups.
You're preaching to the lovely Mrs. Hanson because she agrees with everything you say.
Well,
I liked her.
I do tend to agree with Lila in that it brings us instant information, right? One of the great things about the internet, people will say, is that we have information instantly. We can find out news instantly. Now, you mentioned you found out when people passed away, news events like that. How long did it take you, to find out a world event?
Well, hopefully they'd already been buried because they didn't want to go to the funeral anyway. But no, I don't. Yeah, I think we found out, depending on how close it is. Okay. But the only thing I would say, Mark, just what you pointed out, I get it. I'm into this world too. I mean, I live here. Right. I like things coming fast. Where I do draw the line, and I think this is because of my news background. Now everybody's a news reporter, or at least everybody thinks they're a news reporter. So the problem now becomes, you like getting information quick. Back in my day,
right,
it had to go through a vetting process. And the only information that was considered worthy and valid was information that had been checked,
right,
rechecked, and in some cases triple checked before we put it out to the public. Now, Bob, sitting in his basement, has an opinion about something, which of and by itself would be fine, except Bob puts out his opinion about a topic, and by the time it goes through all these different Instagrams and Facebooks and the like that you're talking about, I guarantee you somebody, because it happens to me almost every day, somebody says, did you hear the story about such and such? I said, no, that's not true. They didn't trade Micah Parsons yet. The Cowboys didn't trade Dak Prescott. Well, I heard somebody say it, and then it was picked up, and then it was you know the old joke, you get 9 people in a line, and you start the message that the little girl with
telephone, play the telephone game,
has a polka dot dress with red shoes,
right? And
by the end of the line, she's naked. And that's what happens with this social media. I love the idea. I think, unfortunately, the genie's out of the bottle, and I don't know how we jam it back in.
Well, I'll tell you, we talked about last month, the subject was DEI. We talked about tipping points. Same thing with here. The information needs to be out there so quickly. I think we've reached a tipping point now where it's not about, we're talking about truths. We're just talking about getting the story out there.
Yeah.
So how do we, like you mentioned, how do we get that toothpaste back in the bottle?
I don't know, and it bothered me because I'll give you a great example about what you just said, Mark. We did the SMU story where we WFAA basically shut down the SMU football program in 1986.
I don't know why you bring this up, Bill.
Well, yeah, just a reminder.
The look on you.
Yeah, I could see it in your eyes. But here's the key. There were some people in our newsroom back then. We did the first interview with Bobby Collins, Bob Hitch, and Henry Lee Parker, the 3 main guys in the SMU athletic department. We did that interview like in April. And we're driving back, and there were a couple of people that said, we need to get this on the air tonight. And I said, get what on the air? I said, we don't know. We think we know, but we don't really know. And the great Marty Haig said to me, the news director, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I certainly don't want to put it on the air now until we know it's true, because this story, if true, is going to have a devastating impact on SMU, which it did. He agreed with me. We then put a hold on the story, and we investigated it for May, June, July, August, September, October, for about 6 months. We investigated that story and double-checked and triple-checked, brought in a law firm to vet every word in our scripts before we aired the story in November. I've had this argument for several years now with my buddies at Channel 8. If that story came out today, that if we had the information today that we had in April of 1986, we would have aired that story in April of 1986. And my main producer, Sean Hamilton, said, oh, no, it wouldn't be that fast. I said, 2 days?
Yeah.
It would be absolutely reported. And then the answer would be much like some people did say back in 86. Well, we don't really know that it's true, but we've got enough viable, interesting facts. We'll let the public decide, which is the stupid argument that Fox has always made. We report, you decide. No, it used to be, at least I believed it so, we report and now you know.
Yeah.
Now we say, we report and you decide. I wasn't going to do it. I refused to do it. Well, because I think you're right. The desire to be first has replaced the desire to be right.
Yeah, that's what's going on today. People just wants to get their name out there because it's so easy, right? It's so easy to get known these days. People are becoming famous really for doing nothing these days, and I think that's a problem. I'll tell you what. Let's talk about when we come back. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about how if we're hating on the devices, if we're hating on the information, and we're not talking about the discipline involved. Who is teaching these people to get on the phones, our kids to be on the phones or to be on the computers all the time?
And I've got stories.
Let's talk about it when we come back. We'll be right back after a quick message. You've been listening to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen.
Thanks for listening to the podcast, but I have a question for you. What's going to happen if an accident happens at your home? Maybe a fire or a flood or even a burglary. Well, with Northwest Insurance Agency, all of those thoughts can just stay thoughts. Because when you're covered under the sombrero, you're covered for any accident imaginable. So give us a call today or visit us at nwagencies.com and let us give you the peace of mind you deserve.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. Dale, when we left, we were talking about misinformation. But Lila had a quick story she wanted to share.
Yeah, I got some misinformation yesterday and I was mad.
Please tell us.
I was doom scrolling as usual. Yesterday was Sunday on Facebook, of course, wasting time. And I came across this picture, one of the groups I follow, and it was a Reese's peanut butter Star Crunch. You know, the little Debbie, Debbie Star, but it was Reese's peanut butter. And I was beside myself. So I posted it and I said, and I Googled a little bit about it and it said, oh yeah, it's out there, but it's real hard to find, but it's definitely a thing. And I looked at Amazon and it wasn't on Amazon. So I put it out there and one of my smarter friends, Jeremy, put a comment not within 10 minutes and said, Lila, there are a bunch of typos on the box. If you zoom in, it's not a real thing.
Oh my God.
So it really crushed my day. I took the post down, but it's a funny example because I love Reese's peanut butter cups, but it's a funny example of, and if I'd read closer on the packaging, I wouldn't have even posted it, of, oh my God, look, shiny object. And want to be the first to put it out there.
Right. Yeah. So you got fooled by your.
I got fooled.
Well, let's
So
jump
I
in.
had this line years ago when all the NFL networks in particular, they started cluttering up the screen, you know, with all the graphs and the scores and the boxes and everything. And my original line was that a picture used to be worth 1,000 words. Now a picture is 1,000 words.
Yeah.
Now, fast forward a few more years, now I would say a picture used to be worth 1,000 words. Now a picture is worthless.
Yeah.
You can no longer trust anything that you see. And it's the same thing in video. It's the same thing on phone calls that we're getting. That isn't really Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Donald Trump or whoever. They can just change the voices with all of this equipment that they have and say some of the most outrageous things ever. And I don't know how we get out of this. That's back to what you're talking about, putting that genie back in the bottle.
Right.
I don't see this having a good ending. I really don't.
Well, I think we talked about it before we went to break. I think a lot of times where we're trying to attack this is we're blaming the information and we're blaming the technology. What we really need to do is get back to the core and get back to discipline. If we had a limit on how much phone time you could have, how much computer time you could have, maybe we can start to put that back in the bottle. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, again, I'm with you completely. About a week ago, the lovely Mrs. Hanson and I, with a couple of our friends, went to dinner at a nice restaurant in Midlothian. It's an old church that's been converted into a great little restaurant. And we were talking about the podcast, and we were talking about how I was going to do this topic because my buddy Eric Newton is an AT&T guy for years and years, and he knows everything about everything: phones, technology, computers, whatever. And I'm telling him that I'm going to do this topic, just ripping on phones and how they drive me nuts. And I look over to my right, my wife punches me in the ribs, and there's a couple with their two kids sitting at a table, and the guy's head never came up. I looked at him probably 5 times.
Right.
And he was on his phone for 15 to 20 minutes while his daughter on the other side of the table was on her phone. And I kept just doing the sneaky look to see, are they ever going to talk to one another?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we were only there for like 45 minutes, so maybe they eventually did.
Yeah.
But I never saw it.
Well,
I mean, where that lack of discipline about your phone comes from, yeah, okay, do it.
Let me ask you a question as a renowned liberal. Would you be in favor of having restaurants where they just banned, you cannot come in if you can't use your phones? Or
Absolutely.
You would be
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Well, you know what, you're going to get an invariable lawsuit. You're going to get the invariable complaint,
I mean, here, I've been in bars and restaurants for 50 plus years of my life. They have phones in the bar. Maybe 2 or 3 occasions, the lovely Mrs. Hanson has had to call me. Somebody from the station had to call me. The example of how bad I am and how old I am. A couple of years before I retired, our new news director, Carolyn Mungo at that time, wanted to talk to me about something. So she says to Sean Hamilton, call Dale.
Right.
And Sean looks at her and said, okay, I will. And she goes, no, call him now. And he goes, well, he doesn't carry his phone. And she says, well, page him. And he said, well, he doesn't have a pager. He said, well, how do we get a hold of Dale if it's an emergency? He said, well, and I didn't even realize, but it's true. He said, Dale's only 4 places. Dale's either at home, he's up at Thorntree in DeSoto playing cards, he's at Dallas National playing golf, 5 places if you count work. He's at work, and when he's not at work at night, he's over at Havana's puffing on a cigar, drinking a glass of wine. Those are the only people. And I said to her, well, that's not true. And he goes, well, where else have you been? I went, well, I haven't been anyplace else lately.
Yeah.
But I would love, they banned cigarettes. I'm saying ban the phone so I don't have to listen to the people at the next table carrying on a conversation that can easily wait until dinner's over. And if you really have an emergency call, the restaurant has a phone. Now, I've never made an emergency call. Now, again, I'm only 77, but I've never been at a restaurant and said, I need to call somebody. I mean, I'm dead serious.
Right.
And maybe in my life, I've been called twice. And both times they just called the restaurant. The restaurant walked over and said, Mr. Hanson, you have a call. They want you to call the station. They want you to call home.
Right.
Did I lose some time? Yeah, probably a minute and a half. You know, I'm not going to fix anything in that minute and a half, at least in my world, for the inconvenience of listening to everybody in the restaurant carrying on a conversation on their damn phones.
Well, I will say one thing I think the phone has done is really taken us away from interpersonal relationships.
Agreed.
I mean, we are not communicating like we used to. And I am guilty of it. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm of the generation that was here before the cell phone and now here after the cell phone. And I am damn addicted, and it upsets me. And because I don't want to be, there's so many times I'm on my phone, and I think to myself, what the heck am I even looking at? I don't even know what I'm looking at.
I'm on it. I come home at night, and I make time to play with my dog, to take him on a walk, to feed him, to hang out with him, to have a good time with him. But he also waits for me. I sit on the couch and I doom scroll. And I could have spent that time playing with Snoopy Lou. I also could spend that time maybe putting away some of the things that are in a couple piles on my kitchen counter, or going upstairs and starting my laundry, or maybe going on a walk. So I'm very guilty of it. I'm definitely, you and I were talking earlier today, Mark, and you asked me, well, do you think you're addicted to your phone? I absolutely am. I will 100% admit to it. And I want to, actually, last night, I was on the phone. It was yesterday afternoon, and it was like 4:15. And I said to myself, get off this phone at 4:30. And of course, I didn't get off of it until like 4:35. But at least I did set a time for myself. But I also, disregarded the boundary. But I am definitely addicted to it. I find myself that when I go home, I get less stuff done because I'm looking at reels on Instagram.
Are you addicted to it, Mark? Do you think would you consider yourself addicted to your phone?
I actually, and I will blame work a little bit because I am constantly checking my emails. But yes, I am addicted to the phone because there are many times, again, like with Lila, I have a routine. I get home, at night when I'm laying in bed, the first thing I do is grab my phone. Even if I don't want to, I just find myself reaching over for it. Now, you've never had that addiction. You've never been fell into that.
I wouldn't say addicted, but it's kind of like although I don't smoke marijuana, but it's kind of like the way I hear people describe marijuana.
Yeah.
It's not addictive, but there's a dependency, right? I left. In fact, it was the last time we came up here to do this podcast. Last month's episode, I left my phone at home.
Oh.
And I'm driving down the road, and I start to call somebody because I usually call people when I'm in the car. And I'm driving down the road. I start to call somebody. It says phone's not connected. And I realized I don't have my phone. Now, my wife said, well, why didn't you come back and get it? I said, I don't need it. But I will say this. It did feel like the entire day I was walking around without pants on.
I was about to say, how naked did you feel? How naked did you feel right there?
I felt all day like I was walking around without pants.
I'll share a quick story.
And I reached for my phone a half a dozen times to call. I can't call. And I went to play poker.
Yeah.
Had a very good poker session. Immediately got back in my car. I always call this buddy of mine to bore him with all my poker stories. I can't call.
Yeah.
It's not an addiction, but I have developed a certain dependency on it. But
Okay.
But before we kind of move into AI and the future of social media,
I'd like to get into that. Go ahead. You had a story.
Let me tell my one phone story that doesn't necessarily maybe portrayed me in the best light, but I stand by it. I'm playing golf at a charity golf tournament at Mira Vista in Fort Worth, and I am this group's celebrity player. So they've already drawn the short straw. I mean, they didn't get Cliff Harris, they didn't get Emmett Smith or, Tom Grieve or whoever. They got me. The guy's phone, we're standing on the tee box waiting to tee off. The guy's phone rings about 3 or 4 times. And short conversations, phone ring. Guy get ready to hit, phone rings. We're driving down the fairway. The guy's phone rings twice. I get ready to hit in the fairway. As I'm getting ready to hit, the guy's phone rings. Ball's on the green. We drive up to the green. The guy's phone rings. We get on the green. I get ready to putt. The phone rings. Now, this is like 8, 9 times. This guy's phone has been ringing, and we haven't even finished the first hole. I back up with this charity group that I am their celebrity guest host, and I look at the guy, and I said, am I going to listen to that damn phone all day? And he's like, oh, he freezes up, and I just kind of slapped my ball up toward the hole, and I stormed off the green. I walked over to the 2 tee box, and I just sat down, waiting for them to finish. His buddy comes walking up to me. And he goes, my partner over there, he's got a big business deal that he's trying to close on. I said, then go to work.
Yeah.
Don't come out here and play golf. If you got a big business deal that's that important, go to work. And the guy then looks at me as I'm thinking, I've got 17 holes to go with these guys. He looks at me and says, so you don't carry your phone? And I said, no, I don't. And he looks at me, he goes, well, you try to slam me down. He goes, you must be real important to your company. And I swear to God, Mark, this is why you don't throw spitballs at a battleship.
Yeah.
I looked right at him that fast, and I went, yeah, I'm so important to my company that when I take a day off to play golf, they leave me alone.
Wow.
And now I'm realizing this 17 holes to go is going to take about 5 hours.
Yeah.
And it was not pleasant. But I stand by it. I take a day off of work to go out and play golf, and this guy's trying to close a business deal. And I'm sorry that his work is that demanding. Go to work. If I've had something to do that day, I would have stayed at work. And it was not, as we say, a pleasant 18 holes.
I
love the comeback line.
Yeah,
I'm so important, my company leaves me alone when I take the day off to play golf.
I'm going to say, Lila, I'm glad we're working with the older, gentler hands. I'm sure. I will say, I want to push back. Last thing on phones, and then we will move on to AI. You talk about phones. People will say, well, the whole purpose of the phone is it's so we can have that information immediate.
Yeah.
So that is one of the good things it does bring, because I do think that a lot of times, emergency situations,
Absolutely.
situations where business deals do need to be made because the world does not stop on the golf course. The phone can be a tool. Again, we're talking about discipline, right? We're talking about how do we get that discipline again where people know when to use the phone and when not to use the phone. And we could go round and round and round.
Well, I would say that same discipline you're talking about, though, needs to be applied to the news media as well.
Exactly.
Because as the lovely Mrs. Hanson Costume says, she gets alerts all the time. About tornadoes are coming, and now we've reached the point of, probably not.
Well, what are we getting at?
It's like that tragic flooding in Central Texas. And I would bet when this is all said and done, people are going to find out that somebody got an alert that flooding is coming, and they go, probably not.
Yeah.
Because you get so many false notices. Every newscast in America, the National's even the worst. Every CNN hour, they go breaking news.
Right.
And then they tell you something that happened 4 to 5 hours ago. Well, since I have a phone, I'm well aware that this happened or that happened. And yet they insist upon telling us it's breaking news.
Right.
And there's the discipline that we're talking about. I still think, let me be clear about this and finish with this thought.
Okay.
I get it. The phone is a great invention. It's fantastic, even though I still like the old flip phone I had better, but still, it's fantastic. But if we don't figure out a way to stop the abuse of it and the dependency on it, I was in the doctor's office here today, 5 people sitting in there. 4 people never looked up. Never looked up in about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm the only one looking around the room because they're all looking at their phone. The ability to communicate with a stranger is being lost. And I know it's this a big deal with the young people, and I agree. I'm the old man here. But I absolutely think young people are losing the ability to communicate with strangers because now they just either send a text or they read it on their phones, and they don't get out of the house like they used to. They stay in their rooms, and that's not a good future. It's just not.
It really isn't. And let's get into that when we come back. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, let's talk about how people are not talking to each other anymore. Let's talk about the media and how they are going to use AI or how they can abuse AI in the future.
Scary.
A lot to talk about when we talk about the ramblings of an old man. Now, we'll be right back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen.
Whether you're racing to work or just enjoying a cruise on a Sunday afternoon, we can do that. It does not matter if it's a beat-up clunker of a daily driver or a supercar that you love with all your heart, we cover it. Perhaps you need business insurance to get on a job site or just want that safety net for your employees, we have that also. Don't forget about your most important asset of them all, your home. What I'm trying to say is that at Northwest Insurance Agency, we do it all.
Northwest Insurance. Get covered under the umbrella.
Northwest Insurance.
We are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. Dale and Lila, when we left, we were getting to start talking about AI and how the media is going to handle AI, because you mentioned in your little commentary, Dale, how AI eventually will outrule us all, right? Isn't that your thought?
It does seem to be not just my thought. I think there's other people that are concerned about it. I mean, it's much like the industrial age of the 1900s, though. At least I'm hoping that what little history I understand, but when the industrial age came in with the assembly lines and everything, well, they didn't need as many workers because machines were going to do that work now. And now you see where it's going. I mean, we're not going to need truck drivers. We're not going to need cab drivers. We don't need many people stocking shelves at Amazon anymore because the robots will take care of it. I do worry about what that future means for the younger people, but at the same time, it's an amazing invention. I'm all about it, but I really do look at it like I look at Facebook. I think
I worry about
I'm not
AI.
interested in everything that Facebook has done, but I understand that it does keep a lot of people together. And now here comes AI, and where does this end up?
I worry about AI a lot. I worry about social media also, but I want to go to something just briefly about the phone and being connected on the phone. I'm the youngest of 4 children. My parents were they were the older parents, 40 years older than me, 40 and 39 years old. And when I first got my cell phone, I remember when I got it in 1997, I always, and I will continue to always keep it on, not ever put it on do not disturb. As soon as I would land my flight, call my mom or dad. Now I call my brother because our parents are gone, to let them know I'm okay and that I landed and I'm safe. But back to my parents, I always worried about their health. I always worried about that. And being the youngest of 4 kids, I mean, I'm the youngest. So my phone was always on so that I could be reached and stay connected if my parents or my siblings needed me for anything. And I'll continue to do that, to stay in touch with my brother, or if any friends. I mean, a few weeks ago, a friend of mine called me at like 11:30 at night, and I was getting ready for bed, but he had something really important to tell me about a matter, and I'm really glad I picked up because it was really essential information about something. So that's where I stand with phones. I understand what you're saying. I definitely understand it. Another thing about phones too is with the younger generation, I've worked at several jobs where I worked with a lot of people, a lot younger than myself, who since they were little, they knew how to work a computer, a phone, how to text, how to work apps, etc. And they don't know how to talk to people. They don't know how to have interpersonal conversations with someone right next to them or their employer. I didn't get my check. Okay, well, Did you ask Greg for it? No, I'm too embarrassed to. Why are you too embarrassed to ask for your check? Yeah. Because they have that lack of interpersonal communication. They're not comfortable.
There's no doubt that the phones have really, and we went over that. They've taken our lives again. We have to figure out how to have discipline because there's got to be a happy medium. But getting back to the AI thing, again, you mentioned, Dale, how great it can be. But
absolutely.
you also, we have to be kind of afraid of it, don't we? And it's something that at some point it might outsmart us. Is that the fear? Is that a fear? Am I the only one that's...
I think it's a legitimate fear. I'm watching Bill Maher Friday night. I'm a big fan of his show. And he's got this young guy on. I say young guy, looked to be early 30s or something. He's one of those high-tech, smart guys. And he says AI is alive, and it will only become more alive, so that now when some systems are trying to be shut down. Now, again, this sounds so incredibly foreign to me. I could be doing this in a foreign language. But this is what the guy was saying.
Yeah.
And if they're saying it on TV, it must be true.
It's got to be true.
But they've now found that when you try to shut one of these systems down, the system has figured out a roundabout so that it can maintain power. Now, I'm sitting there watching this show, and I literally backed it up to watch it again, and I still don't really understand it. But his concern was just that these machines will start making decisions for us. And I still think my phone and what do you call that little box we have in the kitchen, Siri or something like that?
Alexa?
Siri or Alexa.
Chris and I are sitting there talking about, we need to replace this tree that died in our front yard. And about 3 hours later, I pick up my phone, and there's all these nursery ads. We've got trees, we've got rocks, I'm like, what? We mentioned going to Yellowstone in the fall. Here comes, we're just talking about it in the front room. Here comes all these ads about hotels and best times to visit Yellowstone National Park.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Big Brother is alive and well. And I still think it's that little box sitting in the corner. But can you shut it off someday? Can we control it? Because when I walk by, and I'll just say, Siri, add toothpaste to the grocery list, or whatever. Make a note to something. Remind me, what's the weather today? I mean, it's an amazing thing. It's an absolutely amazing thing. The only thing that keeps drawing me back is that, well, I somehow made it through the first 65 years of my life, much like you're talking about landing on a plane. Well, I flew around the country for 60 years and I managed to land safely. I guess my parents knew I did. But that day's gone. I get it. That day's gone. But what if this thing does stay alive?
Yeah, it is.
And now we're working for the robots.
It is scary. Well, first of all, can you and Chris start talking about podcast listeners buying insurance? Okay, just so you can pick up on that.
They'll still. I used to say seriously that they'll always. Bill Maher said this one time. He said, "Well, they're always going to need my job."
Yeah.
Well, do they?
Well, that's the question. You mentioned the Industrial Revolution.
Do they?
You mentioned the Industrial Revolution, how we adapted. We've always adapted to the new revolutions. We adapted to the computer revolution in the 90s, right? AI is just another revolution. My thought is, and my hope process is, they're going to need more servers. They're going to need more people to build these servers. They're going to need more programmers. They're going to need more to create more AI. Mm-hmm. I think we will adapt. And now, again, I too have the fear that at some point that tipping point should come where the systems no longer needs us. But I have to believe that humanity will prevail, right?
I mean, we certainly hope so, right? I know that AI, one aspect that makes me sad is for creators and artists and inventors and writers, how AI is taking over that.
Well,
that makes me
is this the same thing? And again, to show my ignorance, Chat GPT, is that what it's called?
Uh-huh.
Yes. And you could basically give it some ideas of what you want to write about, and then it writes the commentary.
Yeah.
Which incidentally, good or bad, I write them all. But now I'm hearing that students are being able to cheat like crazy, or if I would consider that cheating, that they don't really have to do the work. They just get Chat GPT to spit out the information. They copy it down and off they go. Well, do we then get a dumber generation? Or is it just we just use tools now for that stuff?
Right. Well, there could be an argument they are going to end up with a dumber generation because, they no longer have to do the work. One of the things AIs that we could talk about, which it's a whole different subject, but AI has such an impact on not economy, the environment. You know, my kids would be remiss if I didn't mention that every time someone uses AI, that really affects the environment. So that's something that maybe that could lead to more man-made jobs, is how to save the environment, because the AI is coming, whether or not we want to. It's here. It's already here. It's going to get more advanced. But I still have to go back to the point. I think man will figure out a way to adapt, to create, especially in America. This is a capitalistic society.
Yeah, but and I agree that I think there will be tons of jobs. For all of these different things. But is everybody qualified to do those jobs? I mean, it's one thing to say, well, I'll be a coder. I'll be an influencer, for that matter.
Yeah.
I'll create my own podcast. I'll create my own videos that I will then put up on YouTube, and I'll make a fortune. Yeah, some people are doing that now, and they're very good at it, and they make a lot of money, and sponsors line up to support them. But can everybody do that? See, I think that's the bigger gap. Where do you go if you don't need the truck driver anymore? Where do you go if you don't need the stock boys anymore? Where do you go if you don't need so many manual labor, physically demanding jobs that so many people in this country have filled, like my dad did, for 50 years? If that job gets replaced, but we've done it, though. Like I say, the farm work that my dad used to do growing up compared to the farm work now, night and day. I mean, if my dad could have known that they had air-conditioned tractors to work the fields, I mean, so we have always managed to adapt. I just worry, can we keep doing it?
I do not know. Real quick, though, I did want to mention, let's talk about perception. AI is going to change perception of what reality is. Because we can change images, we can change, people can say things that they really didn't say. It could make people, we don't know what's real.
Oh.
Right. So I'll tell you what, let's take another quick break. That way we have a longer segment when we come back. And when we do come back, let's talk a little bit more about, what is reality, what's not reality because of AI, and how we put that genie back in the bottle. You've been listening to Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen, and we'll be right back. If you're a Texas contractor and your insurance guy doesn't speak your language, fire him. We specialize in Spanish-speaking tradesmen. Call today and we'll review your current policy for free. No pressure, just straight answers. You've seen the guy that's your bro. That's us. And just like it protected my grandfather from the sun, we protect you from life's challenges. I'm Mark Villasana, owner and agency principal with Northwest Insurance.
I actually heard about NW agencies through a friend of mine who's been using them for years. Honestly, I've been really impressed. They made the whole process so much simpler than I expected. I was always used to dealing with a lot of back and forth, but with NW it was straightforward, and I always felt like they had my best interests at heart.
We're a full-service independent agency. That means we don't work for a single carrier, we work for you. We've got access to over 100 carriers, so whether you're insuring your home, your truck, or your electrical business, we'll find the coverage that fits your needs and your budget.
It's been a game changer, really. I used to worry a lot about getting the right coverage, especially with my business and home, but now I feel much more confident. They helped me understand my options and made sure I had the right policy for both my business and personal needs.
We specialize in helping hardworking folks, contractors, tradesmen, laborers, the people who keep Texas running. Whether you're a framer in Floresville, a roofer in Seguin, or a plumber in San Antonio, we'll walk you through the process in plain English or Espanol.
We'll pour you a cup of coffee, talk you through your policy, and make sure you leave with more protection and more peace of mind than you came in with.
This is Northwest Insurance. We've got you covered.
Northwest Insurance.
Okay, we are back on Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hansen. Dale and Lila, when we left, we were talking about AI, and I wanted to get in this whole thing of reality, because we really don't know what is real now and what is not real. And that's another genie you kind of have to put back in the bottle, right? And do you guys have any concept, you being in the media so long, how do we guard that against just...
I don't know, because as you pointed out a little bit earlier, there is such a demand now, and there always has been for the most part, to be first. I mean, but not the way it is now. I'm sorry. This may well be the rantings of an old man, and I'm pretty sure there's some people at my old TV station who are like, well, that's why it's a good thing you're gone. But it used to be a story was created, a story was put together, and then it had to be run through the entire vetting process to make sure that it was accurate, to make sure that it was fairly presented. And then And only then did Walter Cronkite put it on the news, Peter Jennings, Huntley and Brinkley, Edward R. Murrow, as far back as you want to go. Now, and I know I get in trouble every time I say this, Bob sits in his basement and puts the story together. Yeah. And he might not have quite the same training. He might not have quite the same integrity. He might not have quite the same journalistic goals that I still believe, although I'm sure people disagree with this to some extent, that most people in my business have. We've gotten away from that. It's the argument that I've made for a long time. The biggest problem we have in news media today is that people think Fox News is news. People think MSNBC is news. It's not. Neither one of them. MSNBC is an informational, opinionated source for topics of interest from their point of view.
Right.
Fox does exactly the same thing. I think the news on ABC, the news on CBS, and the news on NBC is still pretty good. It's still fair. It's balanced. It's as straight down the middle as they can make it. But the viewing public has lost sight of what news really is, and that has been fostered by the fact that social media can now put a story out, and then somebody, what do you call it, clicks it, retweets it, or passes
shares it.
Then talk radio, which wasn't that big 30 years ago, talk radio's got to fill 24 hours. So I give you this example. A guy sent out a tweet one time because he was madder than hell that Dak Prescott had screwed up the game, and sends out a tweet, they need to trade Dak Prescott now. And the radio guys started talking about, well, if you did trade Dak Prescott, what would you get for him? Should you trade Dak Prescott? Conversations continue. 10 o'clock at night, I don't mention it, and my phone rings off the hook. You are so bad. You're the cockiest guy in the world. You think you know everything about sports, and you didn't even mention the Dak Prescott trade. Because there was no Dak Prescott trade. It starts from a guy in his basement just shooting off a hot sports opinion, picked up by talk radio, and depending on the topic, it might end up on MSNBC or Fox, certainly. It's not news. It's just fun information. And fun information is fun. But how do we control it? And the bottom line is, I think, Mark, in a free society, you can't control it.
I think you can't control it either.
Yeah.
I don't know that if the option is, let's have the government, like they do in Russia and China and North Korea. And, well, they don't have a whole lot of, well, they do from a point of view, I guess you'd argue. But I mean, they have the information put out that they want put out.
Yes.
That's it.
State propaganda, yes.
Well, no, I don't. If the difference is I got to put up with Bob in his basement,
right,
and the government telling me what I can and cannot say in a public forum, well, obviously I choose Bob. I choose Bob. But
you have a little bit of fixation on Bob.
Well, I do. I use it, it's like Chuck Schumer refers to the Baileys, although he does describe them as an actual couple, and they're fictional. I've always talked about Bob and Martha. They are my source, but I've never ever implied that they're real. They're just, I want Bob and Martha to understand what I'm talking about.
Right.
I did do one time, I made some joke on the air about Bob or whoever in his basement. And this kid from New York writes me, and he goes, I just want to tell you, you smart aleck, I make $300,000 a year off my podcast and off my YouTube, whatever. And I wrote him back. I said, God, I got to go into March before I make that much money, and which did not make him very happy.
One thing I will say, y'all have multiple times mentioned in this past 45 minutes about putting the genie back in the bottle. Okay. And I don't think it's possible to do that. And here's why I'm convinced it's not possible to do that. Because if you go on any of the platforms except LinkedIn is the most the smoothest or the least attacked, if you will. I don't know how else to say it.
Least controversial.
Least controversial. Thank you. But if you go on Instagram, you go on Facebook, you go on Blue Sky, you go on Twitter or whatever it's called now, you go on TikTok, it's real easy to be that keyboard warrior under a fake, nom de plume and make fun of things and be so rude and reckless. I'm in the process of wanting to lose weight and get more physically fit and also eat healthier. And I eat pretty healthy, but I like to see different recipes, etc. And so and how the algorithms are, the more you follow something, the more you get fed that type of information. So I get a lot of like recipe makers and some influencers, and we all know I like New York. And so I'll get a lot of that also on my social media platforms. And it's really easy for people to hide behind their keyboard. You're so fat. Go lose weight. Get off of here. Yeah, she knows she has to lose weight. She's showing you some exercises she does to lose weight. Who are you to say that? Who are you to say that her recipe for those green beans looks terrible? Then don't make it.
I think this is one of the frustrations that I have is, and I've said this, I think, on this podcast before, is that everything I say, if indeed it is as controversial as some people say it is, my little fat face is right there. My signature on my TV days, my signature was on the bottom of the screen. I tell you who I am, I show you who I am, and then I say what I believe, and you know exactly where it's coming from. But exactly what you said. There are so many fake warriors, faux warriors, who think they're so incredibly tough and scary and bold because they do it anonymously behind the screen and behind their keyboards. And that's what frustrates me. I wish there was some way, and I don't think this would be a huge intrusion into our civil rights, but I wish there was some way that if you were going to put something on X or Twitter or all those other platforms you mentioned, we get to know exactly who you are.
Well, I think there definitely needs to be some legislation. Unfortunately, we could discuss it.
Well, they've already decided not to do it, right? So, I mean, like Control AI, they somehow decided to vote again. Do whatever you want.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get any help from the government on this situation. So my problem with AI is it is, and all these, we talk about the phone, we talk about the computer, social media. These are all great things. Again, I want to go back to the point I made earlier. It has to be disciplined somehow. We have to figure out a way how to discipline it, because if not, the animal will eat the trainer. I think
I was the last person in the Channel 8 newsroom, because have I mentioned I'm really old, and I would type up my scripts, and you had a 6-ply carbon papers, and then I'd have to pass out all 6 copies. And finally, Carolyn Fusser comes in one day, and she said, "That's it. You're going on the computer." Well, it took me a while. And then my answer to her and everything else was, why didn't you force me to do this earlier? Because when I type up a script, I don't know if you've ever noticed it when I send them to you, but there's no typos in my scripts.
No.
None. I don't, I've never had a typo in my script. So when I was doing it with carbon paper, I would actually tear out the whole page, rip it up, and start over. Because I could not just white it out. I couldn't just take a pen, scratch. No. Every script I read from on my prompter at Channel 8 was clean. But when you do it on a typewriter, it would take me a lot of time.
Right.
On a computer, you just hit that little key. I said, oh, this is the greatest thing. Then I hit that little button. Now everybody in the newsroom has it that I need to get it to disseminate it, instead of walking around going, here's your copy, here's your... So most of these things, just so I can try to be as clear as I can, most of these things are tremendous breakthroughs.
Right.
But my problem is, I'm the guy, and I have to get this in before we wrap up here. I was the guy that told my mom when I was a boy, one day you'll talk on the phone and you'll see the person you're talking to. And I think, probably got that idea from a Dick Tracy comic book, but I'm not Steve Jobs, so I wasn't smart enough to figure it out. My mother-in-law do you remember when they had those huge satellites in the backyard?
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law actually had this huge satellite in the backyard. And she said, Dale, you love all this. It brings in sports and games. And I said, no, I'm going to wait for the day when it's about the size of a plate. and they'll stick it up on your roof and hide it behind the chimney. And she just laughed. She goes, well, I don't think we're ever going to get to that point. And I think now the day will be that we'll maybe not even have anything on the roof. We'll just have something, you plug this into your TV, whatever. But my real problem was I was never smart enough to follow up on it. I was never smart enough to even invest in it when it started to come along. So at the end of the day, I do believe in technology. I believe in the scientific breakthroughs that this great country keeps coming up with. But I do think, and it's in part because of our political polarization and our lack of communication between people, that this has fostered a greater divide among us. Because just like the commentaries that I do, I would have people writing me saying, you're just a fat slob that eats too many cheeseburgers. You're a moron. Your hair's falling out, whatever. And then I would sometimes get him on the phone. I'd find out who it was, whatever. I call him. Yeah, this is Dale Hansen. I want to talk to you about what you said. Oh, Dale, I'm sorry. Dale, I've been watching you for years, Dale. I just had a couple of beer. People face to face very seldom look at you and go, you're really fat. You're going bald. You're very, very seldom do people say that. Now, I've read it about myself, much like you're talking about. I've read it about myself thousands of times. But I write a commentary. I walk into Thorntree, and I'm on my way down there one time. I swear to you, true story. My buddy Bruce says to me, you might not want to come in tonight. There's a guy here who's madder than hell. And he said, he's going to put a bullet in your head if he ever sees you again. So I immediately turned my car to Thorntree. I walked right up to him. I said, Bob? Yeah. Now, I said, how you doing? I said, I'm fine. Do you want to talk to me? Oh, man, you're crazy, Hanson. You're crazy. I said, I know it.
Yeah.
That's what keeps the lights on in the house. I said, so you want to talk about it? No, man, I'm just... We were fine. Face to face. Anonymously, the political divide has taken us off to an area. I don't know if we can handle this one, which is what I said in the closing of the commentary. It was so much easier to say, we can handle this, we'll be just fine. It was easier to say back in my day,
right,
than it is for me to say it now.
Yeah.
And maybe that, again, is just the ramblings of an old man.
The ramblings of an old man. No, Dale, I think you made a lot of good points, and I wish we could put some of these genies back in the bottle, if we will. But
certainly the reckless and cruel keyboard warriors. Because some of the things that I see sometimes comments in the comment section, I'll go look at the comments. I'm like, something's going to be said that's not nice, and there it is, just lined up, and you lose faith in humanity.
The only problem, Lila, that I've had is like I'm a big fan of like let's for example, let's control that as long as I'm on the board. It's like the old joke that I've used. It's like, I'm in favor of controlling pornography and banning pornography as long as I'm on the board that gets to decide what gets banned. And that becomes I really do. I give some conservatives the benefit of the doubt is that, well, we ought to ban that speech and cancel that person, but that person's fine. When I'm saying, no, it's the other way around because we disagree. I don't think there's a way possible that we in America could put a committee together and say, well, you can't say this, because you make fun of that politician. I kind of laugh at it. You make fun of that politician. I'm like, well, how stupid are you? You make fun of that singer, you make fun of that person's body. Well, that's what makes our world go round. I still think it's what makes America great, that we are this melting pot of so many different people, although some people are losing sight of that. But as long as if we decide to ever have the committee, and I'm on it, well, okay, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
But until then, I think we just have to roll with it and accept what a free society means. And sometimes a free society is ugly.
Sometimes it is. It's definitely a new world. Well, Dale, it's been another great one. I really enjoy having listening to you go off on whatever you want to go off on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing next?
Next one, this one I like, and I don't think there's going to be much agreement on this one either.
Okay.
I think it's time. I think it's long past the time that every young person gives this great country a minimum of 1 year, preferably 2 years of public service. If, for example, in my day, I was drafted into the Navy. Everybody was drafted back in the 60s into the early 70s. I think it was 73, 74 when we stopped the draft. That, I think, has also led to some of this polarization. What I'm saying next month, and what I think is incredibly important, my whole life changed when I was taken out of that Iowa bubble that I grew up in. I had never met a Mexican. I had never met a Jew, because they just weren't in it. There was only one black family in the entire Harrison County, Iowa. And I had very, very conservative parents. And next thing I know, I'm in the Navy. Whoa, the whole world changes. And I changed. And I want to say one of the lines about the first woman I was married to, but it was an eye-opening experience, and it was because of the required public service that I had to serve. I hated the Navy. Let me be clear about that. I hated the Navy, and it was a waste of taxpayer dollars. And I'm not saying that you have to go to the military. What I am saying, this is how you make America great again.
Well,
you can be a park ranger. You can pick up trash. You can work at a food shelter. You can clean the beds and the pans at the nursing home, or you can serve in the military, and we will pay you something accordingly. But just like they do in South Korea, like they do in, I think, something like 19, 20 countries around the world still, you owe something back. And that requires, I would say, at least 2 years, because you got to spend the first year kind of making the adjustment.
Yeah.
But as I also say next month, there's not a politician who will ever support that. There's not a person under 30 who would ever support that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people 60 and above might support it because they know they wouldn't be subject to it. But I still think we would be a better people. Our humanity would be restored if we were forced, because I think we do have to be forced, to get out of the bubbles that we all live in, or so many of us live in today. And that's how we make America great again. I think I'm going to copy that line and use that, and maybe use that for like a hat or something.
You really should. That is going to be a great one. I can't wait to go off or hear you go off on that one. I did realize one thing before we close, guys. We make a great setup for a great joke. A Mexican and a Jew and a white guy walk into his podcast studio. All right. You've been listening to and watching Dallas Dialogue with Dale Hanson. Please join us next month to hear what Dale has to say. Thank you.